everyone, it's Silvia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you my top 10 tarot books for readers, and I'm going to explain why I've chosen these ones. So the last time I did a video like this was 2 years ago, and I figured it's about time to update you with my choices. And yes, 1 or 2 books will still be there because I just simply believe that they cannot be topped, or at least they haven't been topped by any other books that has been released in the last 2 years. But there's a lot of new ones there, and I have to say I'm very excited about this video. The first thing I answer whenever one of my students comes to me and asks for the best book is your teacher. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we all have different approaches to tarot, and we may have different questions that may not be covered in a book. And so your teacher is definitely the first person you should always ask your questions to. However, not all of us have the time to go to a tarot course. And many of us actually prefer to have a book and study on that book. And so I believe that there are some books that are absolutely wonderful to study tarot. I will also tell you what level I think these books are fitted for. So whether you're a beginner, you're an advanced, but even a medium, let's say tarot reader, there's different books that are for you. Let's have a look. So if you're a beginner at tarot, first of all, I would say congratulations. It's a wonderful thing to learn. It's a wonderful discipline. It will be for you for the rest of your life. It is something that I can say that, I can attest to that. I have started reading tarot when I was 14 years old, and I have not stopped. There's been times in which, of course, other things had a priority in my personal life, in my personal practice of growth. But honestly, tarot has always been there for me, even more than some friends or acquaintances that were supposed to be supportive. Tarot is there for you. There's no two ways around that. Whether you use it for divination, whether you use it for, as I said, support and introspection, meditation, all these kind of things that you can actually do with a tarot deck. And I can assure you that your journey with tarot will be awesome. The first book that I recommend for beginners is kind of a given. So we're looking at Rachel Pollack's 78 Degrees of Wisdom, a tarot journey to self-awareness. So this is a rather dated book in the sense that then after this one, Rachel has actually written several other books, but this was and still is one of my favorite books to recommend to a beginner. And the reason is that we actually go through, sorry about the yellowing of the pages, I did buy this one a few years ago. We go through all of the cards one by one, but Rachel, as always, has a fantastic approach to tarot. She was a fantastic teacher. Not just that, but she was a wonderful soul, and I believe that we lost a star when she passed a couple of years ago. I wish I had the opportunity to talk to her. I never did, unfortunately. But one thing that I recommend is when you buy a book that has been written by Rachel Pollack, I highly recommend you just clean your mind and make space for an incredible amount of information that will still be beneficial to you even when you are a beginner tarot, because these are things that more often than not you will not be able to find in other tarot books. Of course, there's probably hundreds of books that tell you how to read a tarot card. They tell you the keywords. They also tell you when you are at an intermediate level. They will tell you, for example, if you references to astrology or Kabbalah or alchemy, you name it. But the way Rachel approaches tarot in her books, especially this one, you will see that it's very beginners friendly. And that is the reason why I highly recommend this book. The first time this book saw the light of the day was in 1980. So obviously I could have got it when I was starting my journey with tarot, but I didn't know about this. In any case, highly recommend it. It's very, it flows really well. The prose is very enjoyable. It's not heavy at all. You will feel like you're going on a journey with Rachel, and she's a fantastic character to have next to you. So another book that I recommend when you're still a beginner, but let's say you are grasping already the meaning and you remember all of the meaning of all the 78 cards. And trust me, that is not easy feat, so congratulations if you do. I would say that sticking with Rachel's books is actually really a good idea, and I would definitely recommend Tarot Wisdom, Spiritual Teachings and Deeper Meanings. And the reason why I would say this is more for an intermediate reader, or let's say a higher level of basic or beginner readers, is because indeed Rachel does go deeper into the meanings of the cards. I do recommend this book for the same reason why I recommend the 78 Degrees of Wisdom. Rachel's prose is fantastic, it's very approachable, it is very enjoyable. Again, you feel like you're having tea and bickies with a friend that is talking to you about tarot, and you're just basking in her knowledge and taking notes every now and then, but just generally having a fantastic time. This book, however, does go a little bit deeper. And what I really like about this book is that she actually had the possibility to show you a few cards. So when she talks about the Wheel of Fortune, for example, she shows you a few examples of this card from different decks. And for example, it says here, we've got an example from the Visconti de Marseille Rider, the Golden Dawn, Spiritual Egyptian and Shining Tribe. Shining Tribe is a deck that Rachel designed, realized herself. So it would be really interesting. I do not have that deck. I think that it has been republished probably in the last 12 months. So if you're interested in that, you may check it out. I am pretty sure that it has been republished. So the reason why I'm pointing this out is because every now and then Rachel would just make references to the symbols in the cards. And there's nothing better than to have a visual image. So that will definitely help you memorize those symbols a lot better and also remember them when you need to do so. This book, however, I don't think is for beginners. I do think that it goes deeper into the meanings. And by doing so, inevitably, you start talking about other disciplines that are there for you in order to advance or build up on your knowledge of tarot. But when you do that, when you start adding stuff up on your knowledge from different disciplines, the result of that is that you may actually feel confused. You may feel like there's probably too much knowledge that has been offered in approaching a specific tarot card. That may result in you not wanting to go deeper, just staying at the beginner's level. And that's the reason why I don't recommend it for beginners. I don't know if you had the same experience, but for me, when I was in school, see the Tree of Life, for example, here from the Kabbalah. When I was in school, actual school, and I was learning stuff, when the teacher was not explaining something to the extent that everyone was understanding, I felt like moving on to something even deeper than that, felt like I was completely on my own, and that I had to overcome an unsurmountable obstacle by trying and gather knowledge on something before even starting to understand something else, something even more difficult. I did have dyslexia. I had to find my own ways to learn things, which made me, ironically, it gave me an even stronger motivation to learn things. It probably doesn't make much sense, but to me it was incredibly important to do so because I wanted to be in a race with myself and I wanted to beat my own brain at learning things. Dyslexia has been incredibly frustrating, but at the same time, it also made me more conscious of how much of my knowledge is actually sound or not. And when it wasn't, I just wasn't moving on to the next chapter. Let's put it this way. So I hope that this explanation takes you to a journey of your own. I hope that none of you have dyslexia, because it's something that really I do not wish on anyone, especially if you are still at school. But what I mean with that is that this is something that from the bottom of my heart, please do not take on too many things to study. If you're a tarot beginner, do not start diving into Kabbalah or alchemy. Even though it might sound fascinating, please be aware that that will probably result in a disaster. Just be very comfortable with learning the keys to the tarot, learning the keywords, and also learning reversals, how to read reversals. Learn all of the majors, learn all of the minors, and yes, also the archetypes associated to the core cards. And we've got a book for that, because if you move on to something more complicated before you master the knowledge of those things, I can assure you it's going to make you a little bit confused. And it's got nothing to do with the level of intelligence. It's got to do with a system. When you're learning a system, you need to learn it in a certain way. Having said that, if you are at an intermediate level, I highly recommend this book. It is, as I said, really an excellent quality, and I really loved it. But still, talking about another book by Rachel Pollack, I have to recommend this one from the bottom of my heart. This book actually made me cry. The reason is that I actually bought this book after Rachel passed, and I felt like I was having a conversation with her from beyond the veil. I got this book as an audiobook first, and then I decided to buy the actual physical book, simply because I believe that this is the best of the best that she's ever written. The approach that she presents to tarot in this book feels like she already knew that this was going to be a book for the posterity. This was going to be a book that was going to represent her legacy to all of us in the tarot community. It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner or intermediate or an advanced reader, this book will be beneficial to you, because it is written with the heart and not with the mind. Rachel was absolutely a brainiac. When she used to talk about something, she knew everything at the tip of her tongue. She could quote pretty much anything she had been acquainted with in her fantastic knowledge. But this book is written from the heart. It's a tarot journey to spiritual awakening, and that's the reason why I believe this book can actually be enjoyed even if you are a beginner, because this is talking to you about why you will feel like tarot is helping you. You will feel at times like tarot is your only friend. You will feel like tarot is the one that stays with you even when everyone else has left the building. It is true that in life we go through times that are incredibly tough, and it's true that sometimes those times will try and take us down. And it is true that many of us have been through so many horrible things and tragedies and difficult stuff that we kind of understood who was still there for us. And if you still have family with you, around you in those times, you're lucky. If you have friends, keep them close to you, because those are the ones that will always be there for you. But I have seen with my own eyes many times that that is not often the case. And so I have found myself more than once actually reaching out for a tarot deck and just giving it a shuffle and just pulling a few cards and trying to have a conversation with a deck, because you feel like you don't want to be alone and you want to have someone on the other side of this conversation who actually answers back to you. Tarot can do that for you. It is one of those things that goes incredibly deep, and stays with you. Rachel, when writing this book, I personally had the impression that she was talking about that type of tarot. That type of approach to tarot, as in tarot is your friend, tarot is supporting you, tarot will be there for you. Tarot is not going to let you down, even if someone else have. And so it is something that I highly recommend for everyone. When you feel at that times in your life in which you don't want to go any further, you feel like you've done everything you had to do and things are still really pretty bad, and you just read from this, and the way there are some pearls of wisdoms here that really, that's the reason why it made me cry, not because of her knowledge of tarot. I already knew that. No, it made me cry because some of the things she says about tarot, the fact that we feel the cards and we feel the meaning of the cards, and she was talking about intuition and reading with intuition, which is a really hot topic. If you listen to any podcasts, if you read any books, if you watch any tarot tube videos, you will understand that it is a very hot topic of discussion. Not everyone believes in reading with intuition. I'm the first one to say that intuition can be a double-edged sword. I'm the first one to say that if you're a beginner, please don't even get near intuition. You may be an incredibly intuitive person. Congratulations, good on ya. Please don't read for others. If you're reading for yourself, it's absolutely fine. But please do not use your intuition to read for others, because you have a responsibility when you're giving a reading for somebody else. You have a responsibility to know what you're doing and know what you're saying. The message is always very clear from the cards. When you don't understand the message, double down on your studies. Practice some more. Stop reading for others. Start practicing for yourself. Because trust me, you can hurt someone. You can hurt someone really bad when you give the wrong message. When you don't understand, you think you do. You use your intuition and your intuition is just not helped by your knowledge of the cards, you can actually hurt someone. So she talks about, and she refers to intuition in such a way that it's incredibly liberating. And yes, it's true that there's a lot more to this book. And so if you're a beginner, sometimes it may feel like there's too much knowledge here that is presented. But then every now and then, trust me, you will see and you will feel so much passion coming from Rachel's words towards tarot that this will give you a lot of motivation. Highly recommend it. One thing that I highly recommend to beginners still is to try out a number of different spreads. Spreads actually help you learn, and I know that this sounds weird, but they do. And the reason is the prompt. So a spread obviously has different prompts. A prompt is basically a question or a way that the author of the spread recommends you to read that particular card in that particular position. Once you start reading the prompts and actually answering the prompts, and I cannot tell you the amount of people that I see using a very specific kind of spread and then completely ignoring the prompts related to that spread. It's okay, it's perfectly fine. If you feel that a card is not responding to that spread, then don't use that spread. Use a 3-card pool and you'll be fine. So there's nothing wrong in restarting a reading, for example, especially when you're reading with a specific spread. However, if you do choose to stick to the spread, then please stick to the prompt as well. So one book that has 1001 spreads is this one. I highly recommend it. It's really amazing. I really love it. It's called 1001 Tarot Spreads. Well, pretty straightforward. The complete book of tarot spreads for every purpose. This is put together by Cassandra Eason, and she's also the author of 1001 Spells. Obviously, the number 1001 is a bit of a gimmick, it's a marketing. Obviously, that would, you know, it's the number of spreads that you need in your life that determines the spreads that you're going to look at, not the number 1001. You may need only 10 in your life, and that will be more than enough. What I like to bring your attention to is at the end of the book. So of course we actually do have 1001, as you can see here. This one is, I actually tried it once. This is one of the spreads that I would consider only for myself though, because it treats with arguments that I'm actually never reading for others, like health. I do not do health readings simply because I believe that if someone needs a health reading, first and foremost, they should seek professional help in the healthcare sector. However, I do read the energies around health-related reading. But also finances, same thing. I'm not a financial advisor. I would never do a reading on where should I invest, should I buy this house, etc. I can read the energies around that. I can read whether there is something you need to be aware of and questions like that. But if you're a beginner, please do not do readings on finances and health related matters. Even if you feel like you can, please don't do it. Again, you have a responsibility towards others. And there is one thing that I wanted to say. Bennabel Wen, in her website, if you look down the, I believe is the documents tabs, she is actually sharing PDF files of documents that are incredibly important if you are a professional tarot reader. There is a T's and C's document, for example, that I highly recommend. And that points out that you have no responsibility on the person's actions, on the person you're reading for. Especially if you're a professional tarot reader, you may find yourself in some pretty hairy situation. I can tell you from experience, you do not want to have to justify what you said in a reading. It happened to me once. It was a horrible experience. I was very young, I was 21. I had just started giving professional readings to others. I pulled the death card. This person went ballistic before I even had the opportunity to explain what the death card was about. This person took it as a bad omen. He literally went ballistic. He just started yelling at me, and he literally took the table I was using for a reading and he just flipped it in the air and stormed out. I was very, very scared. So and it wasn't even, I didn't say anything wrong about the death card. He didn't let me finish. He literally did not let me say anything. So you want to protect yourself. It is incredibly important. So check out Bennabel's website about the, I believe it's called Documents and then Shared Documents, and it's a PDF file with the terms and conditions about a reading. So as I said, this spread, I don't really recommend it. I recommend many others of these spreads, but I just wanted to show you that indeed there are 1001 spreads. And then let me just go to here. Okay, so at the end of page 536, you have this index. And with the index, you can go word by word, in the sense that, for example, someone comes to you and they have a career in theater, let's say. They are dancers and they want to know something around that. And it's something that I have absolutely no experience with. I would not know what it means to be a ballet dancer, for example. I wouldn't know what to ask the cards, and if they don't have a specific question, I would generally go to a general 3-card spread, or if this person wants to go a little bit deeper, then I will go to the 9-card spread, or the Celtic cross sometimes, or the reversed horseshoe. There's a number of spreads that we use, but those are really general. If you indeed want to go deeper into the specific field of this person's request, then you just look for that. So for example, Dancing Fame 120. So you go to page 120 and obviously double check whether there is something that can indeed resonate for this type of reading. So the spread 221, it says, if you want to find fame as a dancer. So the questions are, do you love all kinds of dance? So are you dedicated to a particular dance genre? Should you focus on formal training or go to a stage school and learn all kinds of dance? Are you prepared to take any kind of chorus work in any production anywhere to gain a reputation? Do you have gifts in choreography, production that might get you into dance company, musical production, and so on and so forth? So then, if you look at the purpose, for example, at the top here, purpose and background information, if you need to decide whether to focus on a dancing career or keep it as a fun activity, this is an incredibly common question, and it might not be related to dancing, it might be related to painting or anything else. As a matter of fact, I do that a lot of questions from people who are starting to read tarot, and they come to me and they ask me, should I make it a career? Should I become a professional tarot reader? So obviously this is something that you can adapt, but it definitely brings you ideas on prompts for a spread specifically on this. What you should use, the full deck, when you see a chance to audition as a dancer, even if not your preferred option. So what I like about this book is that not only you can look for a keyword and find the spread that you need with the right questions, but it also tells you a little bit of the purpose and background, as we said, what type of deck you should use. For example, for the spread 224, as we see here, how to win a scholarship to the best college to give you a flying start in your chosen field of expertise. So in this case, it's a 2 cards reading, and it says what you should use is the 22 major arcanas and the 16 court cards. As you can see, this is very specific. I would have to read about this because I don't necessarily see how that will work. But this is incredibly interesting. And so even if a spread doesn't look on your first impression that it might work for you or for the person who's asking for a reading, it may give you an idea on how to use it for a different reading. This is incredibly, how should I say this? This is incredibly motivating. This book will give you the possibility to really focus on so many different aspects on how to practically read tarot. And I highly recommend it when you're at that stage of your reading career in which you're reading actively for others. But another book for beginners, and let me tell you the number of times in which I've been asked how to read the court cards. The court cards are unfortunately not the easiest cards to read out of a tarot deck, and there's a number of reasons why that is. I love them though, because I see them as, I don't know, archetypes of people, and more often than not, I would definitely recognize someone in my life and I would just nickname them with a court card. It's also true that most people would not just share all of the traits and characteristics with only one court card, more likely 2, sometimes even 3. And there are things in life that change our personality, so we may move on from one archetype referring to one court card to another. When you want to have a grasp of the court cards, there's no book better than this one. This is Your Tarot Court by Anthony Dunn, our lovely, gorgeous Anthony, who's Australian, but she lives in Canada. Unfortunately, she left our country. So read any deck with confidence. I cannot talk highly enough about this book. This is my favorite. This is what I use with my students and my members. With my members, we're doing a Read Like a Pro course. It's something that I've been doing for over a year now. So if you want to join my membership, you will find there's at least 20-30 videos of me explaining how to deepen your knowledge on tarot. And I always use, when it comes to the court cards, I always use this book. I have tried during the years to approach the court cards through different books, through different perspectives. And even though I may say there's other books that are very legitimate, very good, this one has it all. This one is so comprehensive that I honestly do not recommend any other book on the court cards, at least until now. Obviously, I don't know if someone is writing the best book ever on court cards and it's going to be published tomorrow. Of course, I may check that out, but I think I still keep this one because it is that freaking awesome. So let's have a look at the table of contents, because I actually believe that there's so much gold in this that you'll be able to see it immediately from the table of contents. And I might actually zoom in. Apologies, I haven't done that before. Let me see if I can fix that in the editing. So the structure of the tarot, of course, we need an introduction. We need to understand what her perspective is. But then, is the tarot card dated? This is great. This is great because this is one of the questions that I receive all the time. Tarot card cards should not be genderized. I don't know if that is a word or not. But let's see. Let's say I don't read gender in a tarot card card. However, I do read a feminine or a masculine energy. And as I said earlier, many of us will have within ourselves, for example, a Knight of Swords and a Queen of Cups. It is totally possible. It means that you are that person that really believes so strongly in their own values and ethics that more often than not, they will go into a battle, because it is the archetype of the warrior when we're talking about the Knight of Swords. But at the same time, their values are justified by your incredible empathy and the way in which you relate to humanity and the way in which you want to protect it. So it is a very noble person, someone who has a bit of a Knight of Swords and a bit of a Queen of Cups within themselves. As you can see, two different genders, Queen of Cups, Knight of Swords, it doesn't matter. We can have within ourselves any gender. It is not something that is fixed in time. We can actually evolve through time. So if we are looking at tarot card cards as specifying gender, yes, I would say that it is slightly dated. However, tarot is not dated because that's not the way tarot card cards are presented. They will still give you the possibility to recognize the traits that are pertaining to a particular personality. And it doesn't matter whether this personality is evolving with time or not. So titles, gender and physical identifiers. This is a really interesting chapter, and it goes a little bit deeper into what we just said, our elemental associations. This one will take you through a journey of a little bit of knowledge into alchemy and the elemental associations. I always tell all of my members when I do give these classes on how to read tarot on a higher level, I always say you need to memorize and any way you need to. Obviously it may be different person to person, but please always it needs to be at the snap of a finger. It needs to be Queen of Cups water, Knight of Swords air, and so on and so forth. It needs to be as quick as that. Trust me, you will thank me. That is something that is incredibly important, because card cards and their archetypes are actually really resonating with their alchemical element and the meaning of that element. Astrology, the zodiac and the core cards, this is rather interesting as well. As you can see, it probably goes a bit deeper than what you would like for a beginner, but this is something that is explained really well, and I highly recommend it. Predicting timing with the tarot card hierarchy, roles and the progression of the tarot card archetypes and the tarot card love connections. This is really fun. It's so much fun actually, because there's also what I like about Ethony's prose is that she changes styles, and the let's say the layout in the pages is very neat, so it's very recognizable and your eye follows the page. So if you, for example, are looking for a question, you will see it immediately because it's slightly detached. Let's put it this way. So let me just, and tarot pop culture representation. So let me just finish, and the tarot card spread. So the pop cult representations is something that I really enjoyed, because I do that, but not with celebrities. I do that with friends and family. So I know a friend of mine who's a total Page of Cups, total Page of Cups. And it's fun because that reminds me of her traits. That reminds me of everything that I know of her that I then can apply to a reading where there's a Page of Cups. Or another one is a total King of Swords, and so I will definitely be able to remind myself of her personality when I pull a King of Swords in a reading. Mind you, be 1000% certain about your knowledge of the cards before you start doing something like that, because you can always make mistakes. But as I was saying, visually this is a joy to study, let me tell you, because there's also exercises that you want to do, trust me, because that will test your knowledge. And you may think that you know something that you learned it, but then you find out that you perhaps need to study it again. I really recommend this book. This is a book that I recommended again 2 years ago, and as I said, I use it every time whenever I teach tarot. It's getting really yellow in here because I keep on doing like that. So be it, but I really cannot find, at least so far, a better book on tarot card cards. Okay, so now we're gonna go into something more of an intermediate level, and the books that I'm going to show you right now are probably books you don't want to study if you're a beginner, or let's say if you have just a basic knowledge of the cards. Once you have the grasp of all of the cards and their reverse meanings, you can start approaching different disciplines. And one that is probably my favorite, because it's the one that I use the most when I do a reading, it's numerology. So if you want to have a look at numerology in tarot, this is your best book. Buy no other book, trust me, this is absolutely the best of the best. It's Tarot by Numbers by Liz Dean. I had the opportunity to meet Liz in person at the Tarot Conference in WA, in Western Australia, in Perth. I had a starstruck moment. I told her, "Hi Liz, I'm your biggest fan." and she hugged me, and it was absolutely lovely, and we had a really nice conversation. And I was a groupie for a good half an hour because I was asking questions, and I really was interested to know how she started reading tarot, how she started reading tarot with numerology, what she preferred of the two disciplines, and if there was something else that she was recommending for me to read. So I really had a great time. She's a lovely person, really, really lovely. I highly recommend her book because it is very elegant in all of the explanation that it provides. It is very linear as well. It actually really reflects or mirrors the way in which I like to learn things. So I obviously am a little bit biased, and I know that not everyone learns things the same way as myself. It's totally fine. But please try it out, because it will give you a numerological approach to tarot, to reading tarot, and to the meaning of tarot. And let me tell you, this will change your mind. Reading numerologically will change your mind on a few cards. Trust me, it's inevitable. And maybe it's going to be a bit difficult to accept. I don't know. If you're particularly attached to reading, for example, the Three of Swords as the heartbreak, you might find that reading tarot numerologically will take you slightly away from that. But at the end of the day, it won't, because the truth is that even though we read the Three of Swords after learning numerology applied to tarot as the number of growth, so you're growing in the suit of the mind, because it's the suit of air, which is referring to the mind, that is pointing to overwhelm. But overwhelm can have, even if it's the overwhelm of the mind, can have repercussions on your well-being. And so reading it as the heartbreak is correct, even from a numerological point of view. However, it takes you there by a gradual approach and a gradual understanding of the numerological meaning of number 3 in the suit of air. So your knowledge and your expertise in saying the 3 of swords is referring to a heartbreak will not just be because you're just repeating a keyword that you learn, and that's totally okay when you're a beginner, but you will actually explain that this overwhelm in the mind is causing your heartbreak, is causing a destabilization of your feelings, is causing you to feel like you cannot go on, for example, and a number of things. And also, I really like that numerology can give you the possibility to learn how to read in a sequence, because numbers are in a sequence, of course. And so as a consequence of that, if we want to stick to the 3 of swords, we will know that the 3 of swords is read as an overwhelm of the mind, but it can also point to a feeling of not having done the right thing, because it comes after the 2 of swords. The 2 of swords is the impossibility to make a choice because you're blindfolded. And it's also because the numerological meaning of the 2 means that you're opening yourself up to somebody else there. The 2 of swords, the number 2, is the number of negation, denying that you are a unity. You're not an ace anymore, you're not alone anymore, you're not single anymore. You are in front of somebody else. But because the 2 of swords shows you that you are in a dire situation, and pretty much a dangerous one too, you will feel like you cannot open your eyes, but you cannot make a choice. So this impossibility to make a choice will probably go over the deadline, so you will not have time anymore. And once you get out of that 2, you find yourself in a 3 of swords. Because you hesitated for so long and it wasn't necessarily your fault, you find yourself in a situation in which you unfortunately have lost control. So this is a sequential method. This is something that is even a little bit further than a numerological reading or numerological approach to tarot. I highly recommend it if you want to hone in on your skills of reading. Highly recommend approaching numerology before you approach any other discipline that can be seen in tarot. This is the way in which I'm teaching my students and my members, and we will eventually talk about astrology. We will eventually talk about Kabbalah. I do go hand in hand between numerology and alchemy, because I really think that actually the elemental approach to tarot is probably even more important than a numerological one. But I would definitely lead you to a deeper knowledge on how to read the cards by going through all of these references and actually learning them, and not just memorizing them, learning the why we read these references in the tarot cards and how we should read them. So Tarot by Numbers by Liz Dean, absolutely recommend it. It's a fantastic book. Now, if you want to read from an astrological point of view, this is your best bet. Tarot and Astrology by Corinne Kenna. Enhance your readings with the wisdom of the zodiac. Sorry, let me just zoom slightly out because this is a bigger book. This is a book that I used in conjunction with 36 Secrets, I believe it's called, and that was Susan T. Chang's, let's say, personal approach to the Deccan Walk. I have done the Deccan Walk together with my members last year, and it was a very wholesome experience, but also it gave me the possibility to be incredibly adamant and crystalline about my approach to astrology when it comes to tarot. And I do not believe that if you're a tarot reader, let me put it in a very, how should I say this, politically correct way. You do you. Personally, I do not think that a 100% astrological approach to tarot, especially when we're looking at the deck and walk, is going to improve your knowledge on tarot. As a matter of fact, in many cases, I do believe that there is a divergence between the meaning of the cards according to the astrological approach and the cards that tarot has created in its own system. Tarot was a system that was created as independent from astrology, just as much as astrology is completely independent, or can be completely independent from tarot. Tarot has got its own system. There are astrological references, Kabbalah references in the Thoth Tarot, and even more so the Golden Dawn. And the deck and walk is best done with the Golden Dawn deck. That is my personal preference. Not even Thoth, Golden Dawn. The Hermetic titles are, to me, they are a lot better in the Golden Dawn expression and not in Aleister Crowley's expression. However, that is a completely different video. And getting back to this book, if you want still an astrological approach to tarot, this one is the book you want. Not a book on astrology that gives you a little bit of a perspective on tarot. Please take tarot first and add astrology later if you want to be a tarot reader. If you want to be an astrologer, then be an astrologer. Absolutely, go for it. This is a great book though, Tarot and Astrology. It does show you, let's say, or give you the possibility to do a deck and walk, in the sense that obviously it looks at the minors, and it also gives you their references to the deck and walk to the year, let's say. But this is a lot more than that. I would say it is a lot more than that. It's not for beginners, as I said. It is for a more intermediate level of your knowledge. It talks about the cardinal sign, fixed and mutable. It tells you a lot about the position of the planets and where they are in exaltation. So there's a number of things that are definitely referring to astrology. But I believe personally that this book stays true to the system of tarot, and so it will not confuse you, and that's the reason why I recommend this book rather than many other astrology and tarot books that are out there. So Corinne Kenna, really loved it. If you want to learn tarot on a more advanced level, I would say there's a couple of books that I already recommended in my video from 2 years ago, so I'm not necessarily going to talk about them too much, because I believe I gave an extensive review of these 2 books, and I also have a number of other books that I want to recommend, and so we're just gonna skip to them. But just to give you a couple of words about this one, so this is the Archetypal Tarot by Mary Kay Greer. Every time I reference this book, I talk about this book, people look at me with a blank expression on their face. I don't know why this book is not more famous. This is a fantastic book. What your birth card reveals about your personality path and potential. It's also talking about constellations in tarot, which is an advanced concept that I've done with my members as well. And the concept of constellation, just to be very quick about it, just not to just launch a concept out there and not back it up. So especially when it comes to constellations, we think about groups of cards, okay? The way in which we will group cards together. How do we do that? With numerology. So if, for example, one thing that always blew my mind out of this book is the way in which we perceive the devil card, which is number 15, so numerologically speaking is number 6, with the arcana number 6, which is the Lover's card. So when we look at the Lover's card and the Devil card, they are part of the same constellation. They are part of the same constellation. This is the principle of choice. So basically, the Devil card is actually a teacher. To the Lover's card, because the Devil card is the card that tells us that we need to learn we need to learn, so it's a teacher, we need to learn what we don't want to look at. If something is shameful for us, if we do not want to go and have a deeper conversation with ourselves regarding a certain subject, the devil cards teaches us to do so, because at the end of the day, we need to face our darker side. We need to understand why we are ashamed of something, for example, why we don't want to go down a certain path when we talk about personal growth and so on and so forth. And so this is one of the examples in which this book will change your mind when looking at certain cards, and will definitely give you an appreciation of those cards and an additional layer of interpretation of those cards themselves, because you will be able to see that if there's a devil card in a prompt, that, for example, the prompt could be, what is this situation teaching you? Then you will know that the answer to that is look to the darker side. Even if you don't want to, even if it makes you ashamed, you need to face it, and this will teach you how to learn. Absolutely love this book. And this is the Advanced Tarot, an in-depth guide to practical and intuitive tarot reading by Paul Fenton Smith. Always recommending this book because Paul is Australian, I don't recommend it just because Paul is Australian, but also because I honestly believe that this is a fantastic book when you want to, for example, get a deeper understanding on how to read reversals. This is absolutely fantastic for reversals. To this day, with all the research that I do, because I research at least 2-3 books a month, new books a month, when it comes to how to teach tarot and how to approach the teaching of tarot, I have yet to find a book that talks to you and explains to you reversals as well as this one does. And it is a very comprehensive approach to tarot, but then again, yes, it is a slightly more advanced approach to tarot, and so I do not recommend it for beginners. Another book that I highly recommend, and this is totally new, or rather it's been published probably 6 months ago, but I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this book, and it's only been made available now in Australia. So if you're based in Australia, you will be able to get a physical copy of the book. I don't have the physical copy of the book, I only have the Kindle. Still, I will probably buy the physical copy though, because I always make it a point to buy the physical book when I love a Kindle book, or instead of saying Kindle, let's put it this way, an ebook, because I don't want to make any kind of recommendation on a specific brand. So ebook. So if you have an e-reader, this can be found as an ebook, and the experience is fantastic. So I highly recommend it. It's called The Neuroscience of Tarot. This is a book that has been written by Siddhartha Ramakrishnan, but it does come with a foreword by Mary K. Greer, who, as you know, is one of my favorite scholars about tarot. This is an incredibly interesting book because this one deals with neuroscience and the study of how tarot and reading, especially tarot and divination. So it's not looking at tarot as a personal growth, an instrument for personal growth, but literally is looking at the reaction of the mind when we tarot readers, when we read a card, when we approach a card, when we look at the card, when we look at symbols, when we remind ourselves of what those symbols mean. There is a number of topics that are tackled in this book that I believe are A, revolutionary, and B, incredibly heartwarming, I should say, because I really love that we are looking at tarot as something that is so important and recognized as such by a scientist, an actual scientist, and it's heartwarming to see that finally tarot is not considered just, a pseudo thing that is just out there, and it's not to be respected. This is a book that is really respectful towards tarot. Very, how should I say, I was about to say very easy to read, yes and no. So you don't need to be a scientist. I'm not a scientist. I have been studying neuroscience, neuroplasticity in specifics. I did not necessarily need my studies in neuroplasticity in order to understand this book. That's one thing. Have I enjoyed it more because of that? Probably. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. You don't need to be a scientist to enjoy this book. But if you are, if you have any kind of knowledge on neuroscience or psychology also, neurochemistry as well, that would definitely be beneficial. You will enjoy this book a little bit more, but I still highly recommend it. It really talks about intuition, going from intuition to prediction, going through imagery, and that is the reason why I really love this, because we're not just talking about the process of divination and what centers of the brain are lightened up when we are in the process of making a prediction, for example, although it does tackle that as well. But it really talks about the images, and it talks about the way in which our brain reacts to them. I would have never thought, I always wanted to combine these two passions of mine, and I never thought that somebody else was out there doing exactly the same, which was probably a bit naive of me to think that no one was thinking about it. But I highly recommend it if you are interested in a human mind and tarot. This is the book for you. Really fantastic read. Another book that I highly recommend, and actually I'm going so far as to say that I recommend the audiobook of this book. So this is Unlocking the Tarot by Lisa Papez. This is a fantastic book. It's been published, I believe, towards the end of last year. It is available also on a e-reader format and on an audiobook format. I chose the audiobook because, well, first of all, because I love audiobooks. There's no two ways around that. I do walk a lot, and so when I go out for a walk, I just love to listen to an audiobook. But this one was narrated by Colleen, let me just pronounce it correctly because I'm Colleen Marlowe. Colleen Marlowe is the same that narrator that narrates 78 Degrees of Wisdom, which is Rachel Pollack's books that I was recommending earlier. It was the first book that I recommended in this video. So she has a fantastic voice. She is, you can tell how much she's passionate about tarot. At the end of 78 Degrees of Wisdom, the latest edition of the audiobook, you can also access an interview between Colleen and Rachel. So that was absolutely a bonus. That was amazing, and one of the reasons why I highly recommend the audiobook of that book as well. But this one is just as good. It produces a very evocative atmosphere. It makes you feel like you're just sitting at the table, drinking, sipping on your coffee, and just having a conversation. And this is due not just to the narrator, Colleen, but also to the way in which Lisa writes. She actually approaches tarot in such a way in the explanation of the keys of tarot. So the subtitle of this book is, I believe, Finding Your Own Keys. The reason why I think this is relevant and very enjoyable, and it makes it very enjoyable as well, is that Lisa explains how you need to find your own way to read the cards. And I appreciate the way in which she explains it, because it's not, as I was saying earlier, not just about intuition, or not about intuition per se, but it's about your experience. It's about your life. It's about understanding that tarot has been created by thinking about a number of occurrences and instances and facts that happen to people. And the symbols in the cards and the situation that are depicted in the cards need to resonate with people's experiences. And so you need to, if you pull a card, for example, and you really go, oh, geez, it feels like this card is really for me because I had just been through that and such experience, and it really makes me think, it makes me emotional sometimes, it reminds me of something, it makes me feel in a certain way. Be certain that that is exactly what that card is meaning to tell you. That is exactly the message you should read from that card. And it's just incredible that you can ask any tarot reader from all around the world and will tell you exactly the same thing. I was in Georgetown in Malaysia last year, and I went to a place where there were basically, it was an association of tarot readers from China that was traveling the world, and they were just organizing workshops. And so I went to the organizer and I said, look, I have a YouTube channel, I actually filmed it, and said, can you give me a reading? And we did not even speak the same language because we needed a translator. So she only spoke Chinese, and we had a translator come in and speaking English to me, and I was answering back in English, and she was translating into Chinese for her. So of course some things were lost in translation because there's no two ways around that. But it was an amazing experience because she was reading the cards in the same way as I was reading them, and at a certain point she pulled a 10 of swords for me, and I was already in my mind, I was already, here we go, what is she going to say? Because of course I expected that, and I thought to myself, she's probably not going to read it in the way I read it, numerologically, and with an alchemical point of view. But she went exactly that, and she said, you know what? I normally wouldn't read it this way, but I can tell from the context of the cards that this is the right way to read it for you. And so I was like, it's amazing because this is a confirmation to me that tarot has a way to speak. And so you need to be able to listen. And Lisa's book, I believe, prepares you or convinces you, at least it shows you the reason why you should keep your ears open when you're reading tarot to listen to the message. So I highly recommend it. Another book that I highly recommend is Tarot for Creativity. This is a book by Chelsea Pippin Mizzi. My apologies if I did not pronounce it correctly. This is a fantastic book. I believe it's been published again a few months ago. I love this book so much that I will definitely, as soon as it goes in a bit of a sale, I would definitely buy the physical copy of this book. So far I've only had the Kindle. However, it is a great experience in the Kindle as well. So if you don't want to, again with the Kindle, with the e-reader, it's a great experience with the e-reader as well. So if you don't want to buy the physical book for whatever reason, then you will still benefit from the ebook. This is a book that really focuses on using tarot for creativity, but it still is excellent when you're looking into deepening your knowledge of tarot because it presents the meaning of the cards from a creative point of view. So what do you do, for example, when you want to stop self-sabotaging, and then you will be given the possibility to learn that by reading the meaning of the Devil card? Or for example, when you want to surrender control, when you want to embrace your creative phases with the Moon, or when you want to find your creative depth with the High Priestess. So there is an approach to tarot card by card that is still very didascalic, it's still very informative and instructional, but at the same time it does offer you a slightly different approach to the way in which you will then use a tarot deck. It is obviously not the best book for divination. I would definitely not recommend it for divination, even though, let me tell you, it still really will help you gain that knowledge that you might want. But at the same time, I believe that we have so many books that approach divination that we don't necessarily need another one. What I am actually thirsty for lately are books that are giving me a different approach to tarot, or they are making me want to use tarot in different ways. And this one is definitely a must. Another book that I highly recommend, and in specific, I highly recommend again the audiobook experience of this book, is Tarot Mysticism, the Psycho-Spiritual Technology of the Thoth Tarot. This book has been published by Joy Monteleone, and in specific, the audiobook is narrated by Brian Wiggins. If the name Brian Wiggins rings a bell, is because he is the preferred narrator by a number of authors that write on a, let's say, fruition level of scientific books on the brain and the science of studying the brain. I think I have 6 or 7 books read by Brian Wiggins. I have The Brain by David Eagleman, fantastic book, really that blew my mind, pun intended, I guess. The Happy Brain, The Idiot Brain, The Phantoms in the Brain, one of the most harrowing books I've ever read on what the brain does sometimes. So it makes it really, his style of narration makes the book very enjoyable. I personally, I don't know whom I will recommend this book to, because it's obviously based on Thoth, but it's also psychological. It does present you with a psychological approach, and I believe that was the reason why they chose Brian Wiggins as a narrator. But it also doesn't skip on the spiritual side. In any case, it is really interesting. When you buy the audiobook, by the way, they also give you access to a PDF file with a number of, let's say, highlights from the book. I would say that as a first approach to this book, if you have like a library card, if you have a Libby account, then you may be able to find this book for free from your library. So you will be able to listen to it. And that's what I did, actually. So I didn't even pay any money for this book. I am wanting to buy the physical book. However, it is not cheap. I believe it was trending for about 50 Australian dollars. So sometimes these books go on sale. So I would probably just wait for this book to go on sale and then I will buy it. But I was very, very excited about listening to the audiobook. It was an amazing experience. Particularly, again, like I was talking about the neuroscience of tarot, I don't think that you need to be acquainted with certain terminology from psychology, from the study of psychology. However, it will be beneficial if you are. This is definitely something that will enrich your knowledge. It talks about Kabbalah in an extensive way, numerology in an extensive way, and non-duality in a new way. So this is from the summary that I'm reading. But I have to say, it wasn't difficult. So there's a lot of books, and you will notice that I don't talk about Benabel's book, The Holistic Tarot. It is a fantastic book, really, really, absolutely awesome. But I believe that it's a book that needs to be taken in small dosages, because it is showing her encyclopedic knowledge of tarot and all of the other disciplines she talks about. And as a consequence of that, it is not the easiest book to follow. That is the only reason why I don't talk about her book in this video. This one is, let's say, on a more complex level than the neuroscience of tarot, but it is not as complex as other books. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. There's a couple of parts that I don't think were necessarily explained to the full extent as to which I would have loved them to, but then again, that would have been just my preference. And it does have a very extensive bibliography section, so if you want to deepen your knowledge on certain topics, you certainly can with the study of other books. Tarot Mysticism, highly recommended, slightly for the more advanced readers. Well, that was it for today. So we talked about probably a bit more than 10 books, but you know what I mean? When I say it's top 10, it's actually top 11 or 12 or sometimes even 13. It is what it is. In any case, thank you so much for being here and have a great day. Bye.